Okay, this video will be a review of another novel whose reputation precedes it, but that I just didn't really quite enjoy like I thought I would. Again, uh, this author is best known for probably just this one book, although he did write many others. That author is Kingsley, and the book I have in mind is Lucky Jim. I had always wanted to read this, and then several months ago, I went to a library book sale here in San Antonio, where they have little paperbacks like this for 50 cents and hardbacks for $1, and I figured, well, if it's 50 cents, you can't go wrong, so I picked it up. This isn't exactly the book that I thought it would be. I knew that Lucky Jim was one of those central books, sort of in the genre that people refer to as the campus novel, which mostly concerns the lives of either college students, but more frequently college professors. The details, often gritty details, of their personal lives, their sex lives, their interactions with students, which are sometimes sexual, etc. It basically revolves around what goes on at a university, the people that go to the university, the geography of the university, the geography of private lives, etc. That's what the campus novel is all about. This isn't really as funny as I thought it would be, though, which may be a result of the time between when it was first published in the early 1950s and when I read it, which was just a few months ago. When I hear the words campus novel genre, as I said, I think of academic politics, the intertwining lives of wry, well-educated professors, and perhaps some insight into them as people, usually with a good dash of humor thrown in for good measure. They do tend to have a reputation for being very funny. Lucky Jim has many of those elements, but it's much more of a sordid private life angle than I was expecting. When in high school, I read a few of the English literary critic and author David Lodge's novels, who has made some very, very funny, good contributions to the campus novel. I have in mind especially Small World, Nice Work, and Thinks. And they managed to contain more of a balance between those elements that I mentioned. And maybe it's because my first experience with the campus novel was with Lodge's works that I compare all subsequent ones to his, which I find to be truly, really fun reads, really wonderful. Even though Lodge doesn't seem to have garnered much appreciation in the United States, I would recommend him to anyone interested in the campus novel. So, as far as the novel itself goes, the central character is the Jim of the title, who, despite the title itself, is not really all that lucky for much of the novel. He's a lecturer in medieval history at the university, and he's trying desperately to be taken on permanently by the university. He's just there on a temporary basis. And because of this, he feels he needs to impress and to comply with the wants and needs of Professor Welch, who's the head of the history department. Jim has started seeing Margaret, who is still another member of the history department, and who has recently tried to commit suicide after a failed romantic relationship. Welch, on the other hand, is a tremendously affected man. He's a pedantic bore who throws parties where he inflicts attendees with medieval musical ensembles and readings from plays. I mean, he's just a very bizarre person. On one of these first excursions, his parties, Jim meets Welch's son Bertrand, who's an equally bloated artist monk, and his girlfriend Christine, excuse me. Christine's uncle, however, is an influential art patron through the university, and through Christine's uncle, he sees himself as being able to sort of have exposure to the larger world of art. So Bertrand is basically using Christine for access to her uncle. In addition to being a terrific drunk, the private lives of many of these people are in utter shambles. And this may be more of an intended social political commentary that Amos was aiming at, which I'll talk about more in a bit. Margaret, for example, is a neurotic. Christine is seeing Bertrand but begins to see Jim while he's seeing Margaret, and Bertrand begins to see one of his father's colleagues while he's still seeing Christine. It's just a bunch of... It's not one love triangle, it's several sordid love triangles. And more of the novel than I would have liked consisted of Jim trying to decide between the relative merits of Christine and Margaret. Only at the end of the novel does Jim really become Lucky Jim, getting the girl a job, a satisfying job, though not the one he was anticipating at the university, and eventually moving to London. I'll leave the details for the lucky reader who actually wants to dive in and read it. This was written before Kingsley Amis became more conservative in his politics, and therefore has a lot of tension between Jim, who comes from what Americans would call a working class background, and the Welsh family and their friends, who are elitists and obviously political Tory sympathizers. Amos goes on to tremendous lengths to show the shallowness and this would be endless fascination with wealth and political reactionism that permeates the Welsh's world. Only a family like this could have two sons, one, Bertrand, a painter, and the other who is never talked about as, never gets to actually enter a scene in the novel, but who is referred several times throughout as effeminate. As I like to say, you get the kind of children you deserve. I'm glad that I finally read this, since its reputation does precede it. The humor, such as it is, often consists of jabs at class structure in England 60 years ago, which would have been much funnier at that time, especially for someone who was leaned as perhaps a Marxist. But that kind of humor is at several removes from what most contemporary Americans are going to associate with being funny. And that's not Kingsley Amis's fault, it's our fault. I find myself wishing that the characters were more likable, as much as that word sends me into fits, especially when applied to literary characters. I don't think characters should have to be likable, but all of them are so neurotic and alcoholic and sex-crazed, and their private lives seem to resemble the private lives of their teenage students. It wouldn't make any top 100 lists of my favorite novels of the 20th century, that's for sure. Though it seems to have made many others. Many people do have it, actually, in their top 10 and top 50 and top 100 lists of the 20th century. It would not make mine. But I can't deny it does have its moments that are laugh out loud funny. So if any of this sounds interesting to you, Lucky Jim by Kingsley Amis.